Hello guys, welcome to my channel and great SolarWinds and GNS3 integration course. So before we start, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like the video to get every new update almost every day. And if you haven't seen my previous lesson, please click here to watch my previous lesson. So here is our GNS3 diagram and this is our SolarWinds server. Again, I should mention that if you want to close this lab, you should say quick from file menu and you should save the configuration on your switch or routers here in our GNS3 diagram. And again, if you want to power on and power off SolarWinds, you should do it from GNS3 here. You shouldn't go to the VMware workstation and power on and power off the machine from here, because in this case, GNS3 cannot recognize the SolarWinds connection. So now we should enable SNMP on these devices, I mean R1 and R2 and Mikrotik, and then we'll run the network discovery to add our devices by SNMP protocol. So first off, we'll go to R1 and here we'll go to the configuration terminal and we'll say SNMP server community. Let's say, for example, lab or whatever we call it, and we'll say question mark. Here we have the RO or RW. We need read-only access to our community string. Let's say RO, and here we should have the access list, which we're going to use a standard access list here. So let's say, for example, access list 2, and here we'll say access list 2 permit only our Orion or SolarWinds NPM server, which is going to be 10.10.10.50. In that case, we will secure our community string by the access list, which is highly recommended. And don't try to use predictable, simple community string. You can use, for example, long word community string. So that's it, and we'll say end and WR, and we'll go to R2. And again here, let's say configuration terminal, SNMP server community, lab RO, access list 2, and again access list 2 permit only our Orion server. NPM or Network Performance Monitor is the new name of Orion server. You may ask, what is different between Orion or NPM? To answer to this question, both of them are the same. In some cases, we can say the legacy name of SolarWinds NPM is Orion, but still they call it Orion. But in most cases, they say SolarWinds Orion NPM server. So that's great, and again we'll say end and WR, and for configuring SNMP on Mikrotik, we should go to SolarWinds because we need a Veeam software to connect to the Mikrotik. So here I'm going to go to my SolarWinds, let's say maximum size, and let's say we don't need server manager anymore, and here is the Veeam. Actually, I'm going to add the link to access the Veeam to the description of this video, and here you can see it is discover the Mikrotik because all the devices on the same VLAN. So that's great. This is a layer 2, and of course because we added the IP is going to be a layer 3, and we'll say connect, and here we'll go to IP and SNMP. Simply by enabling SNMP, we'll go to community, and here let's say a lab community and the read access, that would be okay. We don't need security. Of course, we can use a layer 3 community string, so that's great. And here for trap community, we're gonna say lab. That's great. And here is the communities. Of course, here we can secure the community by adding only the SolarWinds IP address. That's great. So that's all we should do in our Mikrotik router. So we'll go to the SolarWinds now and we'll type the IP address, or let's say, for example, now we have the IP address, and instead of localhost, we'll say 10.10.10.50 and the port, and we will say admin and the password. And now we should run the network discovery. As you can see, again, in your production environment, don't try to save it here because this is not a good case actually for security. So here we'll say discover my network or add single node. So as soon as you add the single node or run the discovery till the end for the first time, you won't see this screen anymore. So for our case, we're gonna say discover my network in case that you can run on your production environment and add multiple devices to your SolarWinds NPM server. So I highly recommend you, before you do anything, you should enable SNMP on your devices. For example, you should enable SNMP on your routers, on your switches, on your ESXis, on your Windows, or whatever device that you have, and you can run the discovery and bring them all together. This is a great practice that you can do in your production, specifically for a very massive network. But on the other hand, you can add a single node. It's clear that you should only add one node. Later on, I'm going to show you how you can add a single node. So we're going to click on discover my network, and this is the path actually. Outline your network, define credential and things like that, and we'll say start. Here, as you can see, we can add subnets, even we can add multiple subnets. For example, your switch's IP address, your router's VLAN IP address, your Windows servers, your whatever, and here we can add a range. So in your case, if you are working for production environment as a network engineer, you will select the subnet or, for example, the IP range. Or you can add several IP addresses. Or, of course, you can discover your Active Directory for all your servers that are joined to your Active Directory, and all the servers is going to bring to your SolarWinds by WMI protocol, which is a great protocol for your Windows 7. So as we only have 3 or 4 IP address, I'm gonna say add a range. Let's say 10.10.10.1 to 9 or 10. Of course, it can include the SolarWinds, but I don't like to add SolarWinds here. By the way, it is added by WMI, but we're gonna enable SNMP on our Windows server here and add it as a SNMP Windows to itself. So, and we'll say next. And now, here it says you can add VMware, ESXi, Hyper-V, or Nutanix server. So we'll say next, as we don't have any hypervisor. And here you can use, for example, add the devices by agent. The agent is going to install on your Windows servers. And this is the condition. So we're gonna select this one because we don't want actually to install SolarWinds agent for our servers. We want to only add the SNMP. So here we're gonna say add SNMP. Don't try to use public and private. They are very non-secure and well-known SNMP protocol community that you can use, which is very non-secure. So let's say, so in our case, we're gonna use version 2 here, or say lab, which is our community string. That's great. And of course we can delete, for example, public or private actually, and we're gonna say next. And here for Windows credential, you can, for example, add the WMI here. Let's say, for example, let's say we have the domain, call it lab, and administrator, and here you can type the password, the domain admin account here. And you can add multiple Windows servers by WMI, but we don't need it anymore from here. And this is the device node polling. Of course, we're going to use SNMP for your Windows servers. If you run the Discovery, you should use the WMI. So that's great. So here we can use a manually set up monitoring after discovering or automatically. I prefer manually, which is very easy. You can, for example, add monitoring option at the end of the network discovery. So we'll say next. And this is the details actually. You can increase or decrease the time of the SNMP timeout, search time, and SNMP retries, or things like that. We'll say next, and here you can use frequency of the discovery scheduling. So for a production environment, I highly recommend, for example, use weekly for your network discovery. In that case, even you can discover the new devices has been added to the network specifically for your servers. For example, let's say that you have a massive data center and few administrators work together there. Any admin actually install the new device or added the Windows server or things like that to the data center, you will discover the new devices in your network. This is a great option that you can use in your production environment in case to see what SolarWinds discovered the new device. So we're gonna cancel and let's say once and discover. So it takes time based on your devices and the response and the speed of your network. For example, maybe you have WAN connection or MPLS with low bandwidth. That's gonna actually take more time to discover that networks. And here, as you can see, discover two devices. So that's great. Here we'll click on next. Now, as you can see, we have this option, selection criteria. So it's gonna add these matches here. For example, operationally up, trunk port, physical port, virtual, or unknown port, or things like that, the Ethernet, loopbacks, and we'll say next. So as we don't have operating system like Windows and Linux, we won't see volume type here. We'll click on next. And these are the IP address and the name of the device and the polling method. And we're gonna say import. So now, as you can see, the network sonar result is gonna import that two devices, and we'll say finish. Now we'll go to the summary of Network Performance Monitor. Here, as you can see, we have R1 and R2. And by click on that device, actually it will need at least 10 minutes to gather the information, but the node is up and this is the information. And here we can scroll down to see polling method is SNMP. That's great. But what about Mikrotik? Let's say go to the dashboard. So it's clear that the Discovery wizard doesn't actually add the Mikrotik device. So let's minimize, and again we'll go to SNMP here and the community. So that's great. Let me actually add it manually here. So here in our dashboard, we'll say manage node, and we'll click on add node. So let's type the IP address, I think is 3. That's great. 10.10.10.3. This is how we can add the single node. So, and we're gonna say SNMP and ICMP, you can add the devices only for ICMP. For example, you want to only see the availability of the devices by ICMP on your network. Let's say that device, for example, doesn't support SNMP or any monitoring protocol. So here I'm gonna say lab and we're gonna say test. So you may be wondering why the wizard doesn't add a Mikrotik, because in my router here, let me show you, show run include SNMP. Here I'm using the capital lab, but here I use the small letters here. This is the big difference. Whatever that you write in your community, the monitoring server is going to reaction. That means if you use the, for example, let's say here, let's say capital lab, and here again we'll do the test again. This time we should see the failed status. As you can see, here is said failed. And if again we'll say lab, is gonna accept this community string, and we'll scroll down here. You don't need to use this option, next, and next up we're going to add a Windows SNMP device. That means we're gonna configure this Orion server, this SolarWinds NPM server as a SNMP client. So again we'll say next. Sorry, here you can say, for example, I don't need layer 3, I don't need volume utilization, or things like that. You can select or deselect whatever as you prefer. But the best option that you can do, in my opinion, you should leave it default. And here, as soon as Ether 1 connected to the network, which as you can see it's disconnected, is not connected to any network, you will see that again is gonna be added like Ether 1, because here it means that we only need the green interfaces. So we're gonna say next, and this is the sample of the UNDP polar to Mikrotik, which is default. And again, we'll scroll down, we're gonna say add a node. So here it says node was successfully added. So that's great. We'll go to Mikrotik. Here we can see the device. So again, you should wait 5 or 10 minutes to gather the information here. So now is the time to enable SNMP on the Windows and add this NPM server with SNMP. So simply we'll go to server manager here, and we're gonna say add role and features, next and next, and again next. We don't need the role, we need the feature. We'll scroll down here for SNMP service. Sorry, let's double check. SNMP service, yes, great. And for Windows you can use SNMP WMI provider, and next, and install. So that's great, the SNMP added successfully, and here we'll go to run and we'll type services.msc, and we'll press S key. Here we'll go to the SNMP service, and we'll go to agent. Here we'll select these two options, and the trap is going to be a lab or whatever community string that you want to use. And here for community, let's say again lab. Here you can use the option to notify, read write, and read only. For our case, read only is great. And here we can add only our Orion server to secure your SNMP protocol on your Windows server. That's great. And here, summary, and we'll click on add node. So by the way, SolarWinds itself has been added by the agent. So let me show you here. Scroll down here to the polling method. Here you can see by the agent. The agent is going to install on the SolarWinds server itself and can be monitored by the agent. So let's add it by the SNMP. Let's say edit node, or of course you can go and add it again as a new device. So as you can see, it's been added by the agent. We can actually say, for example, SNMP and add the configuration, or of course let me delete it and add it again. Let's say add device, delete device. And again, we're gonna say add a node. And we'll type the IP address, which is 50. And the community string is going to be, sorry, the IP address is wrong. And we're gonna say lab community string, and we'll say test. And the test was successful, and we'll say next. And these are the resources. We're gonna leave it default. And again, here's the examples for UNDP and next. And we'll click on again add a node. So as you can see now, the device or our Windows server has been added by the SNMP protocol. And the polling method now for the SolarWinds Windows server changed to the SNMP. So in today's lesson, we learned how to add our Cisco devices and Mikrotik, and of course Windows server by SNMP to our SolarWinds NPM server.